What up, though? Got another reaction video here for y'all. This from Mysterious Surveillance Archive. So like I said, I still got a lot of videos to do today, and we about to get right into this one. Let's go. We're gonna walk these videos down today.
July 26, 2022, 9:46 p.m. A surveillance camera at a community center in Georgia captured a seemingly ordinary moment. A 16-year-old girl standing and talking to a man in a police uniform just a few hundred feet from her home. She had no idea she was being watched, and she had no idea that this grainy footage would become the last confirmed sighting of her alive. What happened in the next few minutes would shatter a family, expose a dangerous predator hiding behind a police badge, and prove that sometimes the very people who swore to protect us are the ones we should fear the most. Because the person who abducted Susanna that night wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. He was someone the community trusted, someone who patrolled their streets, someone in uniform with a legally carried gun. This is the story of how a police officer became a killer, and how a family's worst nightmare became a community's shocking reality. Earlier that day, Susanna Morales had done what any 16-year-old would do on a summer evening. She'd told her mother she was going to visit one friend, then changed plans and went to see another, instead perfectly normal teenage behavior that would later take on tragic significance. The young girl with the bright smile and love for singing had spent the evening at Sterling Glen Apartments, a complex in Norcross, Georgia, just outside Atlanta. Susanna was the baby of her family, adored by everyone who knew her. She spent hours practicing makeup tutorials in her room, had recently picked up the ukulele, and filled the house with her singing voice. Her mother would later describe how Susanna's music made their home feel alive with joy. That Tuesday evening seemed no different from countless others. Around 10 p.m., Susanna began her walk home, a short trek of maybe half a mile along roads she knew well. Her phone, equipped with the Life 360 tracking application, showed her location in real time to family members who wanted to keep her safe. But safety was about to become an illusion. At exactly 9:46 p.m., the community center camera captured Susanna walking along the roadside, unaware that predatory eyes were watching her every step. She appeared calm, unhurried, just a teenager heading home after spending time with friends. Then, something went terribly wrong.
Hold on, who arm is that on her? Who hand is that?
Something went terribly wrong. What happened next would puzzle investigators for months. Susanna's phone showed her reaching her neighborhood, getting close to home where she should have felt safest. Her family, monitoring her location, watched as the familiar blue dot approached their street. Then the dot began moving in the opposite direction. At first, the movement seemed normal walking speed. Perhaps she'd forgotten something or decided to take a different route. But then the impossible happened. According to the GPS data, Susanna was suddenly traveling at 40 miles per hour. She didn't drive, she didn't have a car, and nobody in her family was expecting to pick her up. A text message appeared on her phone. "I'm on my way home," but Susanna never arrived. Instead, her phone continued its high-speed journey away from safety, away from home, away from everything familiar. At 10:30 p.m., one of her friends received a crash alert from the Life 360 application. The phone had stopped moving. It would never move again. Susanna's family began searching immediately, driving the streets, calling her name, hoping against hope that this was all some terrible misunderstanding. But when dawn broke on July 27th, their daughter was gone. Meanwhile, just a few miles away at Sterling Glen Apartments, a 22-year-old police officer named Miles Bryant was going about his evening routine. Bryant worked as a courtesy officer at the complex, a position that gave him reduced rent in exchange for patrolling the property and keeping residents safe. He was also a sworn officer with the Doraville Police Department and served in the National Guard. To his neighbors, his colleagues, his superiors, Miles Bryant appeared to be exactly what law enforcement should represent: dedicated, conscientious, always willing to help. But appearances can be devastatingly deceiving. The next morning, July 27th, Bryant contacted police with a concerning report. His service weapon, a Glock 19 pistol, had been stolen from his vehicle. Someone had broken into his truck overnight, he claimed, taking his holster and gun while leaving everything else untouched. The timing was remarkable. Less than 12 hours after Susanna Morales vanished, the courtesy officer who lived at the very apartment complex she'd been visiting was reporting a stolen firearm. But this was just the beginning of Miles Bryant's elaborate deception.
Hold on, I'm thinking back on what he just said. I'm pretty sure cops do not leave their service pistol in the car. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure they'll take it in the house. Like, come on, G. Like, people steal cars not knowing it's the police or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, they do that, like, every day. So, why leave your work credentials in the car? You know what I'm saying? Or work equipment in the car. That don't make sense.
For Susanna's family, the next 6 months were a living nightmare of uncertainty. Tips poured in from across the country, reported sightings in Detroit, Nashville, Gatlinburg. Each lead brought hope, then crushing disappointment when investigations turned up nothing. Police deployed drones, thermal imaging, and aerial surveillance. They conducted undercover operations, worried that Susanna might have been taken into human trafficking networks. Every resource was exhausted, every possibility explored. Her mother, Ora Morales, faced the worst kind of anguish, not knowing. Was her daughter dead? Was she suffering somewhere? Was she trying to come home? The questions haunted every waking moment and invaded every dream. It is the worst possible thing to not have closure, investigators would later observe. I think my daughter may be alive. I hope my daughter is alive, but I don't know. Emotionally debilitating is not the right two words to use. It's worse
Mama
than
look
that.
young too. Is that the mama or the sister? Or
Throughout
something?
those
Her
6
mama look
months,
young.
Miles Bryant continued his duties as courtesy officer and police officer. He patrolled Sterling Glen Apartments, the very place where Susanna had last been seen. He carried himself with the same professional demeanor that had earned him respect among colleagues. No one suspected that the person helping search for the missing girl might be the very person who knew exactly where she was. February 6th, 2023, 6 o'clock in the evening. An off-road enthusiast was exploring remote areas near Drowning Creek Road and Highway 316 in Decatur, Georgia, more than 20 miles from where Susanna had disappeared. What he found changed everything. The victim's remains, tragically decomposed, found across the forest floor. No clothing, no fibers, no forensic evidence remained. Just the evidence of time passed in the Georgia wilderness. The medical examiner would later determine that approximately 95% of Susanna's remains were recovered, but several parts were missing, and without soft tissue.
95%.
Georgia wilderness. The medical examiner would later determine that approximately 95% of Susanna's remains were recovered, but several parts were missing, and without
chopped her
soft
up.
tissue, determining cause of death proved impossible. The lack of clothing indicated foul play. People don't simply die without clothing in remote woods without criminal involvement.
Right.
For investigators, the discovery was both heartbreaking and challenging. They finally had answers for Susanna's family, but they also had a homicide case with precious little physical evidence to work with. That's when they made a discovery that would crack the case wide open. About 100 feet from Susanna's remains, investigators found something that should never have been there. A Glock 19 pistol, abandoned on the forest floor. It hadn't been buried or hidden. It looked like it had simply been dropped and forgotten. When they traced the serial number, the results were shocking. This was the same weapon Miles Bryant had reported stolen on July 27th, the day after Susanna disappeared. The same gun that had supposedly been taken from his truck by unknown criminals was now sitting in the woods where a murdered teenager had been found. The odds of this being a coincidence were astronomical. Investigators immediately focused on the courtesy officer, who had seemed so helpful, so concerned, so professional throughout the search for Susanna. They were about to discover that Miles Bryant had been playing an elaborate game of deception from the very beginning. Detective Carter approached Bryant carefully. They needed him to talk, to explain the inexplicable connection between his weapon and the crime scene. But they also had to be strategic. Revealing too much too soon could cause him to stop cooperating entirely. Bryant agreed to come to the station for what he believed was a routine interview about his role as courtesy officer. He had no idea that investigators had already begun unraveling his carefully constructed lies. "We're literally talking to everyone here," Detective Carter explained casually. "We're just trying to document everything. We got no leads, man. Hopefully with your being in the know, with everything going on with the complex, we can maybe put some pieces together." Bryant played his part perfectly at first, suggesting various theories about who might have taken Susanna. He pointed to gang members, transients, suspicious characters who frequented the apartment complex. He seemed eager to help, concerned about the missing girl, frustrated by the...
I ain't gonna lie. I don't know about Norcross, Georgia, like at all, but I do know that my baby mama, she grew up down there, and I doubt if it was like any gangs in Norcross, bro. It's like the suburbs of Atlanta. You feel me? I know a lot of people from the hood move to the suburbs and still do their gang activity, but I don't know. I just doubt that. But I don't know Norcross, so don't get down.
lack of
I
progress
could be
in the
wrong.
case. But investigators were watching for something else entirely, the subtle signs that would reveal when Bryant shifted from helpful witness to desperate suspect. While Bryant maintained his facade of innocence, Detective Carter was methodically analyzing phone records that would ultimately destroy every lie the officer had told. Bryant carried 2 phones, his personal device, and a work phone issued by the Doraville Police Department. Both phones created digital footprints that could be tracked through cell tower data, painting a precise picture of his movements on the night Susanna disappeared. What
Stupid.
investigators found was devastating to Bryant's claims of innocence.
You the police. You should
Between 1
know.
and 2 a.m. on July 27th,
Police. You should know not to take your phone on a crime. Come on, G. But you done.
just hours after Susanna vanished, Bryant's phones were actively making calls from cell towers located near Highway 316 in Decatur, the same stretch of woods where Susanna's body would be discovered 6 months later. Bryant had told investigators he spent that night driving around after arguing with his girlfriend, never mentioning any trip to remote woods 20 miles away. But the phone records didn't lie. His device was in the exact location where a murdered girl's remains would later be found. When confronted with this evidence, Bryant's carefully maintained composure began to crack. "Listen to me," Detective Carter said, his voice steady but firm. "Your device was the only one out there. She went missing. She died there.
I need to find
Your
that
gun is there.
interrogation video.
Your phone is there. This is your moment to talk about it." For the first time, Miles Bryant looked genuinely rattled. The helpful courtesy officer facade dropped away, revealing something much darker underneath. "This is terrible," he whispered. "Maybe we're a monster." "Oh, hell no. Prove it wrong." But the evidence was overwhelming. Bryant's own digital footprint had placed him at the crime scene. His weapon was found near the victim's remains. His story about the stolen gun fell apart under scrutiny. Most damning of all, investigators discovered that Bryant had lied about never having seen Susanna before. Witness testimony revealed that he had actually approached Susanna and her friends previously, offering them rides in his black truck encounters he had steadfastly denied during questioning. "If I killed somebody, I would know that," Bryant protested, but his protests rang hollow against the mounting evidence. The case was far from over, though. Phone records and circumstantial evidence could place Bryant at the scene, but proving murder without a definitive cause of death would require prosecutors to paint a complete picture of who Miles Bryant really was beneath his badge. As investigators dug deeper into Bryant's background, a disturbing pattern emerged. The helpful police officer had been living a double life for years, preying on vulnerable women while hiding behind his uniform in position of trust. Dating back to 2018, Bryant had begun burglarizing homes belonging to his high school classmates, specifically targeting young women. He would steal private items, personal belongings, anything that satisfied his twisted compulsions. Even after Susanna's murder, his behavior escalated. Surveillance footage showed him attempting to break into a young woman's apartment while wearing his National Guard fatigues, trying to force open her door despite her obvious fear and resistance. During searches of his digital devices, investigators found evidence that he had been using women's phones to send illicit content to himself, a violation of privacy that revealed his predatory mindset. The evidence painted a picture of someone who had been building toward violence for years, someone who used his authority and access to target victims, who trusted his badge. But would a jury believe that this decorated officer, this National Guard member with commendations and positive performance reviews, was capable of kidnapping and murder? June 5th, 2024. Almost 2 years after Susanna Morales was taken from her family, Miles Bryant faced a jury of his peers in a Georgia courtroom. He was supposed to serve and protect, the prosecutor told jurors during opening arguments. He is one of the people that we should trust to enforce the law, somebody we should hold to a higher standard, but he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he abused the law, and he used his badge and he used his position to satisfy his own predatory impulses. The prosecution's case was built on circumstantial evidence, but it was overwhelming in its totality. Phone records placed Bryant at the crime scene. His
Why
weapon
you
was
put her
found
in the
near the
back
victim's
seat?
remains. Witness testimony proved he had lied about never encountering Susanna before. Most powerfully, they presented evidence of his pattern of predatory behavior, the burglaries, the attempted break-ins, the escalating violence that had culminated in murder. He is a cop who turned into a killer, prosecutors argued. The defense faced an uphill battle. Their strategy focused on the lack of direct physical evidence, no DNA linking Bryant to Susanna, no definitive cause of death, no eyewitness to the actual crime. "You don't have to like my client," defense attorney admitted to jurors. And in fact, at the conclusion of this trial, you're going to think that he is the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen. However, he is not guilty. They suggested alternative theories. Perhaps Susanna had overdosed. Perhaps she had been killed by someone else who coincidentally dumped her body near Bryant's gun. But these theories lacked evidence and
I don't
credibility.
believe in no
The defense
coincidence.
also attempted to portray Susanna as a troubled teenager who might have put herself in dangerous situations. But her friends and family testified that she was a normal 16-year-old who had been safely walking home from a routine visit with friends. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Miles Bryant was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury had seen through his lies and recognized him for what he truly was, a predator who had used his badge as a hunting license. For Susanna's family, the verdict brought some measure of justice, but it could never bring back their beloved daughter and sister. "I knew at that moment that we got him," Detective Carter reflected. "We had done our job. No one's above the law, and he got what he deserved." But the case raised disturbing questions about how someone like Miles Bryant had been able to operate for so long without detection. How had his department missed the warning signs? How had the apartment complex failed to properly screen their courtesy officer? Susanna's family has filed a civil lawsuit against Sterling Glen Apartments, arguing that they should have conducted more thorough background checks before giving Bryant access to vulnerable residents. Their battle for accountability continues, driven by their determination to prevent other families from experiencing their devastating loss. The murder of Susanna Morales exposed uncomfortable truths about predators who hide behind positions of authority. Miles Bryant wasn't some shadowy stranger lurking in alleys. He was someone the community trusted, someone who wore a uniform and carried a badge, someone who had sworn an oath to protect and serve. His crimes remind us that evil can wear any face, carry any credentials, and hide behind any institution. The very qualities that should make someone trustworthy: authority, access, community respect, can become weapons in the hands of those who abuse them. For law enforcement agencies, Bryant's case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of thorough background checks, ongoing psychological evaluation, and vigilant supervision of officers. One bad actor doesn't just destroy lives, they undermine public trust in all the good officers who genuinely serve their communities with honor. Detective Carter, who led the investigation, reflected on the broader implications. Just like any profession, you could run into having a bad egg. As a law enforcement officer, your job is to protect others who cannot be protected. This is a very sad case, apparently, of an officer who was not doing it for the right reasons. The investigation also highlighted the crucial role of modern technology in solving crimes. Without cell phone tracking data, without surveillance cameras, without digital forensics, Miles Bryant might never have been caught. But technology alone wasn't enough. It took dedicated investigators who refused to accept easy answers and kept pushing for the truth. Number 14. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this tragic case is the courage shown by Susanna's family throughout their ordeal. During the trial, her mother Aura and sister Jasmine testified about their loss, sharing their pain with a courtroom full of strangers in hopes of securing justice. When asked how long she had waited for news about her daughter, Aura Morales answered in a voice breaking with emotion, "Almost 7 months." Asked what went through her mind when she heard Susanna's body had been found, she replied through tears, "I did not want that news. I was waiting for her, and I'm still waiting for her." Their strength in the face of unimaginable loss inspired investigators to work tirelessly on the case. Detective Carter admitted that having a daughter the same age as Susanna made the investigation deeply personal for him, driving him to pursue every lead and examine every piece of evidence. The case also demonstrated the vital importance of community involvement in solving crimes. The off-road enthusiast who discovered Susanna's remains, the witnesses who remembered Bryant's suspicious behavior, the technology that preserved digital evidence, all contributed to building a case that brought a killer to justice. Miles Bryant will spend the rest of his life in prison, removed from society where he can never harm another innocent person.
Good for
But his
him.
crimes continue to reverberate through the lives he shattered Susanna's family, who will never be whole again. His fellow officers, who must work to rebuild trust he helped destroy, and the community that learned too late that the person they trusted to keep them safe was actually their greatest threat.
This video over. Yeah, he got what he deserved with his weird self. Crazy man, living right in the community too. It's crazy how the apartment complex gave him cheaper rent just to keep the neighborhood safe, and he was the problem. That is crazy. That is insane. People gotta be more careful. I know ain't nobody perfect, but at least gotta try to be. That's a fact. This fool weird. He got what he deserved. I'll see y'all in the next video.